Hello everyone, thanks for joining today's webinar on transforming your business processes from paper to digital with K2 and CoSign. My name is Michelle Salazar with K2 and I'm a technical specialist here at K2. Today I'm joined by Brian Lapointe, who is a Vice President of Sales in the Americas for ARX. So today's webinar and our focus is really about tying together business process automation with digital signatures. And traditionally, we see applications that route information to users and maybe do not actually implement digital signing procedures. And likely some of those documents actually get printed or emailed or handed off for signature. And so today, with CoSign and K2 together, what we want to show from Brian and K2's perspective is really about bringing data from those disparate data sources really into the document and the forms that might be used by those end users and route those documents to the right people. And finally, provide that integration with that signature capability. So again, bringing process with digital signing into play for that. And so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn over to Brian to go ahead and get us started with talking about today's webinar.
Yes, thank you for that introduction, Michelle. And I believe you're giving me control of the slides at this point. Yeah, there we go. Let's just start with the agenda. I'm just going to do a little overview on what digital signatures are, talk about the business drivers, and then what it takes to do deployment of digital signatures, what are the considerations, and then we'll have a handoff and we'll talk more about where the process and digital signatures come together with a robust demonstration of the solution too, a live demonstration. So let's go. So for those who are unfamiliar with the technology, we first need to establish the difference between electronic signatures and digital signatures. Interesting enough, you'll find that federal and state regulations broadly define electronic signature as a symbol, a sound, or even a process. Okay, and that was put in place some time ago to promote electronic commerce, essentially. This is what makes electronic documents and signatures legal. Examples could be, a scanned image of a signature, that I accept check mark that you click on a website. A signature could be captured using an electronic pad at a grocery store. The regulations, you may know, they're called eSign, UETA, the federal and the state regulations. So, on the other hand, you have digital signatures, which is an electronic signature, but digital signatures are the most secure form of electronic signatures. They are industry standard, they're thoroughly peer-reviewed and vetted for security and consistency. Basically, this means that they are reviewed for any kind of vulnerability, tampering, or even forgery. Okay? They give you the primary elements needed to meet your governance requirements, any audit requirements, and even your corporate compliance. And so what are those elements? It's that tamper detection, proof of integrity. You get a clear indication by that green mark that integrity is in check. The red X is that there's tampering. Okay? So the key in signatures is to ensure that no tampered content is relied on or goes undetected. This is the fundamental property that you get with a digital signature, so that you and the people in your organization can inspect and rely on that signed document and the content of it. The other elements that are mandatory, they include the proof of identity and the evidence, who signed it, the proof of intention, proof of date and time, and then all-important integrity check, as I mentioned earlier. With this type of signature, you are compliance ready and you can meet your governance issues and compliance regulations. So, compliance and governance is one thing, but you need to keep your business moving. What else is driving this type of automation? Well, the bottom line, paper's too expensive. I posted several quotes for you to read, and you can see that Pfizer says wet signatures cost them $30 per signature. This solution is going to help you be more efficient and address that cost issue in your enterprise. It's going to help you be more efficient and save the precious time and money and improve your bottom line. The AIM organization undertook a survey where they interviewed 300 enterprises, and they found that 41% need signatures on more than half of their documents. 65% add more than 1 day to the process just to collect the signatures. and 48% of the surveyed print more than half of their documents just to add signatures. Think about that last one for a minute. If you're printing more than half of your documents today to collect a signature, and you decide to start automating the signature process, overnight you effectively have this 50% savings in overhead cost, time, as well as handling FedEx envelopes, you name it. It's a very compelling case to implement signatures. So let's take a look at some of the use cases. Okay, many enterprises don't realize the large amount of documents and processes that are signature dependent. It's too easy to hit that print button and introduce that expense and overhead into your business. These are the actual use cases of CoSign customers from the survey. On the left is the transactional category of documents that cross an organizational boundary. Those documents need to be verified and relied upon by people outside the organization. That's what a standard digital signature allows. People outside the organization can inspect and verify signatures and then rely on it. Once your signature is reliable, your business will continue to move. Governance docs, same thing, but only internal people need to rely on the signatures. This type of signature allows documents to have effect because you can inspect the signature for the evidence according to what your audit and governance or compliance requires. It's all built into the CoSign signature. Continuing, with the AIM survey, the AIM survey also interviewed organizations that had deployed signature automation technology and found that 68% saved on scanning, 65% improved process velocity, and 53% saved paper handling costs. And they looked at 81% reached their ROI in under 12 months. So you can see from the survey the impact enterprises are having by implementing signature automation. By the way, the AIM survey is available on the arx.com website if anyone wants to get the detailed survey. So what does this integrity look like to the users? The native application, and that right there is an Adobe Reader, the PDF. The native application can inspect the signature. Most native applications are digital signature aware. Any stakeholder can inspect the evidence in the digitally signed document for proof of signer identity, signer intention, date and time, and document integrity. This evidence is maintained in the document itself and travels with the document wherever it goes for the remainder of its life cycle. That could be from organization to organization, or could be traveling through time in a long-term archive. The point is that evidence is carried so that when you digitally sign a document, you are actually transforming a document into a legally enforceable record because it contains the evidence that any stakeholder or auditor can inspect and rely on it, or if it's been tampered to not rely on it, right? So what does this mean for your business? Your business can move outside of your organization. You can send these documents to your partners, to your suppliers, to your regulators. These documents will have effect because the people receiving them will be able to inspect and verify the evidence that you were the person who signed, when you signed, and why you signed. So when it comes to compliance, it's worth restating that these signatures are compliant and based on industry standards, including the NIST standards, ITU, ETSI, the European standards, and it also gives you the compliance with the industry requirements such as FDA, HIPAA, PAPITA would be the Canadian version, etc. All in all, CoSign is engineered to meet the broadest diversity of regulation compliance wherever in the world signature needs to be relied on. We have evidence of this as our product is deployed in 50 countries in every continent other than Antarctica. And so just kind of summing up the CoSign specific part of it, the thing that sets CoSign apart from other digital signature technology is that CoSign eliminates the deployment obstacles to digital signatures. Traditionally, certificates needed to be purchased from a certificate authority and updated annually on every machine that would be used for signing. With CoSign, it delivers a plug-and-play network appliance that can be installed on your own network. This appliance essentially makes you your own certificate authority certificate authority, allowing control over when certificates are generated and when signers can sign. Now, administration all occurs through a user directory. CoSign provides an out-of-the-box integration with the likes of Active Directory, LDAP, and other user directories. For non-directory managed users, the CoSign appliance comes with its own built-in user directory, so you can add and remove signers as necessary. Essentially, all elements of digital signing are centrally stored and managed within CoSign appliance, thus allowing for more control and integration capabilities. So it's a turnkey, out-of-the-box solution for digital signatures is the final point here. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Michelle, which she's going to take us through the world of process meets digital signatures and give us a great demonstration.
Great, thanks Brian. Thanks for that discussion on how CoSign really helps with that digital signing and compliance portions of that. So again, let's go ahead and talk about now when process meets that signature. And so this first slide really talks about how many business processes that we see today do require digital signing. And traditionally that signing process is either separated or hard-coded into that business application. As Forrester suggests, that actual e-signature market really becomes less about obtaining the signature and rather more about controlling and automating the signature process itself. And that's really where we're going to pull together the K2 aspect of process with the digital signing portion from CoSign and really kind of have those two meet in the middle. So who is K2 and what does K2 do? K2 is essentially a platform for really automating business process applications. The K2 suite of tools enable businesses to really rapidly compose, configure, and deploy those process-centric applications, as well as touch with or integrate with tools such as CoSign. So we've been around since about 2000, so a little company background here. We do have customers globally, so 2,500 customers in over 80 countries worldwide. Our partner community is pretty tight, and we've got partners around the globe that really deliver solutions, and specifically on today's portion about CoSign and touching base on digital signing capabilities. We've also got a very large group of community members on our K2 Underground community site. So again, we've been around for a while. We do a lot of process automation with business applications, and really it's about allowing business users or business applications to be composed, configured, and deployed efficiently and easily. So we talked a little about what K2 is, but what is K2? What is that platform? Essentially that platform is really architected to bring data, documents, forms, and reports together. It's really more than just about drawing the pretty boxes and lines and tying those boxes together. The K2 platform starts with forms, so we have declarative forms, browser-based experience where you can assemble those forms based on applications, reusable building blocks, we'll see some of that today, being able to bring information from things like CoSign, also the document itself. The workflow itself, a declarative workflow, flexible work environment, so you have multiple graphical design experience. Again, everything is a no-code experience inside the K2 process, from designing those forms to creating that process itself. So whether those are basic task routing to complex solutions where digital signatures are needed in this case, rules escalation, so if that signing procedure needs to happen between a certain amount of time, making sure that you can escalate those tasks, and also that reliable and consistent way to access your line of business data across the organization. So it's about connecting systems, connecting data, bringing that into the form, tying that into a process, and then finally at the end having that report, that ability to maintain visibility into your workflow processes, performance, and audit trail, so we don't have to wonder whose hand is this signing procedure in, who's supposed to actually sign that document, have they signed it, have they even looked at that document. And so these are the things that K2 takes into place, making more efficient and use of valuable budget dollars, reduce maintenance burden, again the tools allowing you to build these applications quickly, and of course decrease time to value and increased ROI. So that's really just a little discussion of what K2 is. Now if we kind of take a look back at that slide Brian brought up of use cases, so we can see invoices and claims and purchase orders, but those all really involved a process behind it. So yes, they do involve a signature, but there's also a process behind those that we really want to take in value of, tying that two together of K2 and CoSign. So how does that purchase order actually get created? How is it approved? Which approvers get to approve that? And finally, How do we know which user to route that to for that signature, and is that signature actually captured? And this is where K2 and CoSign together work together, whether it's an enterprise signing process or even in that government-related field. So some of the things that we wanted to keep in mind as we focused on the digital signing and K2 together was being able to provide that complete integration solution. So for CoSign or anyone composing K2 applications that require a digital signature. We also wanted to have the ability to allow you to split the services so you can start that process anywhere. Whether that means that some applications just want the user management, so being able to add users to CoSign so that they have the appropriate credentials in place and signing procedures. Or the placeholder, the actual signing procedure itself, whether that means we're going to create a placeholder in that document or push the image into the appropriate place or allow the user to push that image into the appropriate place. There's also other elements that come into play, and also being able to cater to a wide range of business scenarios. Scenarios like maybe signing with a signature pad or a key FOB. Signing documents and maybe adding additional signatures. For an example, an employee review. The signatures are captured by each user, and as the document moves forward to each user, maybe we want to capture those signatures and continue adding those to that document. So again, a number of different process and business scenarios can play in here. Another thing we wanted to do is allow for the user experience to be driven by either K2 or by the CoSign UI, or even together, which is what we'll see today. And finally, the integration for management and analytics. So yes, we've got that signing process, we've captured the digital signature, but now we want to see that process as a whole. What are some of the metrics and analytics that we have behind the scenes that K2 is capturing to make sure that these processes are running smoothly? And so those are some of the things we took into consideration for this integration. Now the integration itself, let's kind of talk a little bit deeper into that, and then we'll get into a discussion and demonstration. From a user perspective, you want the ability to create and manage those CoSign appliance users, so being able to add, disable, delete those users. The actual signature placement itself, so managing those signature placeholders, whether it's dynamic or on the fly, or if there's already a place in the form for that. And then finally, the actual signing process itself, so being able to sign that document throughout the process and tying together that CoSign and K2 process automation for that document. So some of the areas of integration that we did with ARX CoSign are the signature fields themselves. So being able to create that signature field, whether it's on the fly or there's already an anchor in place. Creating those anchors from a local person or as an anchor itself, being able to delete, load, list, clear, etc. And then finally, the ability to actually do the signing. So signing an existing static signature field, or even signing fields that are created on the fly. So K2 can impose into that document the creation of a signing field and place that signature inside of that. This is just a quick screenshot of what we're going to see in our demonstration today that shows using that CoSign appliance together with K2. And then finally, actually that signing portion that actually puts in place the static signature field as well as a signature on the fly. The third piece, again, was that user management. So not only being able to create these users inside of the CoSign appliance and verifying logins, resetting passwords, all the typical things you do from a user management perspective, but also the ability to capture additional fields. So we can capture location and business units. So I might want to see which locations are we actually sending these purchase orders to. This is information that's not captured from CoSign, but again, tying together the elements between CoSign and K2, you're able to capture some of that information, and again, tying and integrating into your line of business. From an integration experience, from the K2 perspective, the integration is being used and can be used with all K2 workflow designers, so you have that consistent design experience regardless of what your design platform is from a K2 perspective, and also being able to incorporate that into our K2 Forms application, which we'll see in the demonstration, how we can surface up the CoSign signing process inside of a K2 form. So let's go ahead and talk about that purchase order approval process. That's the process we're going to walk through today in a quick demonstration of tying these two technologies together. We're going to walk through a purchase order approval where we'll have a salesperson who's going to create a new purchase agreement. There's a number of things that's going to happen behind the scenes that K2 is going to handle from an automation perspective. The first thing is we're going to check to see if that user has an account inside of CoSign. If it does not, we're actually going to send an email. So we're going to separate the security of this. We're going to send an email that says we're going to send you a password, here's your username, and then we're going to send a text message with that extra password. So that's being done from a K2 perspective, along of course with the notification that there is a task to be completed. So again, being able to send a task to a user who's not part of your organization but does require the use of signing. We'll also send that task to the customer so they can review and sign that purchase. And then finally route back to the salesperson that created the process or created the sales purchase agreement so that they can sign as respectively. And then finally to the corporate team to do all the reviews and make sure that the process is complete. All right, so with that said, that's the process we're going to walk through. Let me go ahead and switch into my design experience here. And again, if you have any questions throughout the demonstration or going forward, please feel free to type those into that questions panel. All right, so the first thing we see is a web application. So I've got a web application using K2 Forms that allows me to see my account information. So this information is coming from my CRM database, so I can retrieve information. And again, depending on where your customers exist, they can be in CRM, they can be in SAP, PeopleSoft, Salesforce. Being able to retrieve that information from your line of business and show it in the form respectively. You also have the ability to select on each item and retrieve that information. So we can see Reynolds Logistics has their account details, and then we can see the purchase request that they've completed previously. On this form, we'll also see the ability to action tasks. We'll also view reports and do some administration. Again, some of the pieces that we touched on in the PowerPoint, we're going to touch on here in the demonstration. So I'm going to go ahead and just start with the purchase agreement, and let's go ahead and create one for Stark Industries. So I'm going to scroll down and just go ahead and create a new agreement. And the first thing we see is it's already populated the information. I'm logged in as the administrator, and to avoid having to go back and forth between different users, I'm just going to go ahead and type Bob's name in here as the salesperson. And we'll see Bob show up with that information as we go through the process. My purchaser is actually coming from a line of business system, so I'm going to go ahead and type in John Miller here. And you can see as I type that, we'll actually see K2 fetch that information from my line of business and populate my form. So again, I have full access to my data coming from those line of business systems. My requested items, and again, I have a list of my inventory again coming from my line of business. Let's go ahead and order a Toyota Prius. We'll give it the dollar amount of $65,000. And we'll do an express delivery for that. And for this case, in our terms and condition, we want the limited edition sport package. And then this is where we can determine, and again, based on what I select here, we'll determine my routing in my process. So again, tying our form with our process, and then behind the scenes to the signatures. So I'm going to have the customer sign online. However, they can sign now, so I can redirect them to a page if they're sitting here with me. Or maybe they're going to come back into the branch and sign later at the branch. In this case, I'm going to have the customer just go ahead and sign online. So I'm going to send them that email, make sure everything's in place, and then allow them to sign online. The last thing I need to do is just go ahead and upload this purchase order. So I've got a purchase order in place that I've loaded up here, and now I'm going to go ahead and submit this for processing. So behind the scenes, K2 is actually doing a number of things. One of those is creating an account for John Miller. John Miller does not currently have a CoSign account, so John Miller is being created behind the scenes here. And so as I scroll down here, I can go ahead and refresh and see our steps, so we have full access to our status. No longer are we wondering, did they actually receive this task as well. So we can see that we're waiting for customer signing agreement, and we also noticed that there was an email pop-up. So again, to avoid having to log in as different users, I'm just going to go to my tasks here, which now I have a new task. Looks like I've got a few other tasks as well. And so let's just kind of see what the process looks like behind the scenes as we kind of walk through this. And again, just to avoid going and logging in as different users here. You can see one of the first things, again, from a K2 perspective, this is one of the reports you get, an out-of-the-box report that shows the actual process as it's running. So this is a live version of this process as it's running, allowing me to see the path that was taken. So we actually went to see if the customer had a CoSign account. It did not, so we actually went ahead and created that information. And I can expand these individual boxes. You can see I created an account, I sent an email, and then I also sent that password via text message. So I just received a text message with that password. And now we're sitting waiting on the CoSign or the customer signing agreement. And again, now we're going to start seeing that integration come together in a user experience. So I'm just going to jump into my email real quickly. You can see we received our email, and we've notified the user that we're sending them a text message. And we've also seen that the purchase agreement for the dollar amount, so again, pulling information from the form, sending it in the actual email itself, and now we can go ahead and open up that item. So I'm going to go ahead and open up that list, again, simulating the logging in as John Miller here. And what you can see is I've got another K2 form where I can sign in to CoSign. So I'm going to sign in as John Miller with the appropriate password that was sent to me via text message, and we'll log in. So what we're seeing on this page is actually a K2 form integrated with the CoSign appliance itself. So we see the purchaser information that we entered on our first screen when we entered the information for the purchase order. And then below that we actually see the integration with CoSign. So still inside of a K2 form, we're now bringing in and surfacing up that CoSign appliance to allow for the signing agreements in this form here. And so what we're seeing is the ability to sign the document that was uploaded from our initial request. The nice thing about this signing portion here is the ability to place that signature where you might want to place it, as well as being able to resize that as necessary. Now at this point, John Miller has previously logged into CoSign, created their additional information, uploaded some signatures, and we can see some of those signatures here. Uploaded a seal, also did a couple of different signatures. We're going to go ahead and take signature number 1 and just go ahead and sign that. And so this is actually going to be placed in my signature area on that form. So hitting sign, we're actually going to sign that, and again communicating back and forth with the CoSign appliance in K2. And we'll just let that complete, and it looks like the document was signed successfully, and now we can go through and approve our agreement. So again, K2's needing to approve that, so we're going to approve that and move on to the next step in our workflow. So I'm just going to close this window real quickly. Back in our customer or view flow, we can see that process as it's running. In just a moment here, we'll move from customer signing to checking the signed agreement. So making sure that there is indeed a signature, which we saw that just move forward. And now we're waiting for the dealer to sign. So again, the customer has signed the agreement. It's now back in the dealer's hand. So instead of having to send those emails back and forth or deliver via regular mail, that contract, we now have this in an automated fashion. So I'm going to go back into my form here, open up my tasks, and we can see it's in the dealer signing agreement. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that open. And again, we see the same form, but now it's showing just a little bit differently. And again, K2 can handle depending on who's looking at the document, whose turn it is to sign. We don't need to sign into the CoSign appliance because K2 and the dealership already have that account in place, so we can just go ahead and show that form altogether. So previously we saw the ability to sign as John Miller, and you can see the signatures now in place with our little CoSign tag there. Previously we saw the ability for the user to go ahead and drag and drop and add an image. From a dealer perspective, we don't need to go ahead and use images or sign that directly. Instead, we're going to have K2 dynamically allocate that signature area using the credentials as this user's logged in. So the K2 form has already picked up the user that signed in. Instead, I want to sign in again as Bob here with the appropriate password. So we'll type in my password. I can give a reason for signature, add some commentary if necessary. But for the respects of what's happening behind the scenes from the K2 integration is K2 is going to inject this credentials into the form for the signature. So we'll go ahead and sign the document. And we'll just let that come back through. All right, so as we wait for that to come through, we can see that the task is completed. I'm going to go back into my contract signing process. Let's just refresh here and make sure that we've signed completely. And we've got the document coming into play. Our document is signed. And now we're ready for corporate review. So again, the dealer has signed. Now we're ready for corporate. Make sure that both signatures have been taken into consideration. And you can see my task list keeps updating as well. So I can go into my corporate review. And what I should see now, again, because I'm a corporate person, I don't have to log into CoSign directly. I can now see that information. So again, being able to see that contract, and now I've got the two different types of signatures. And again, as part of that processing step, Bob's signature was injected with the date timestamp and Bob's signing agent there. All right, so let's go ahead and submit this. And this should complete our process. And if we tag back over to our view flow just to keep track of that, We should see that process complete shortly here. And we'll just let that run, and it should move to completed in just a moment. Let's just go ahead and refresh that a bit. And there's our completed process. So again, we have full visibility, visibility from a user perspective, visibility from a dealer perspective to know where we are with that contract. In addition to being able to visually see that step as they're processing, we can actually click into each one of these items to see who actually signed them. So from our signing choices, we can go through, take a look at our dealer signing. We can see some more metrics around that. So again, being able to not only see the process, but also now gather analytics and metrics around that signing process itself. From a graphical manner, and again, this is just for this instance or this one version of the purchase order, but all this information is being captured for every step or every process that we're running. And so you can see from a bar chart which step is taking the longest. It looks like the customer signing agreement. And keep in mind that as part of these processes, you can build in things like escalation. So if this purchase order needed to be signed before the end of the month, and we're closing near the end of the month, we can actually send an escalation to send a reminder email to that user that says, hey, we need to have you come in to the branch or sign online with the appropriate link. So again, lots of reporting and process capabilities within this. So now that that process is completed, we can actually go back into our Stark Industries here, take a look at our report or our Toyota Prius that we ordered, and we can see it's in completed status. If we want to open that up, we can get additional information. So maybe somebody that's not part of the process wants to take a look at this contract after the fact. They can actually view that contract and see the information. So let's go ahead and open up that contract, our PDF form, which should contain our signatures. And we'll just go ahead and open that up here. And we're opening up our Acrobat reader here. There we go. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and let Brian kind of talk a little bit about what's happened in this form itself.
Yeah, I mean, this essentially is where you can see the CoSign signature, the strength of it. The first thing that catches your eye is in that upper left-hand corner, you see the green check mark. So that's telling you that you can trust and rely on the signatures that are in the document. And that's not coming from CoSign per se. That's the Adobe Reader software that's verifying the integrity of these signatures. So once a document is signed by CoSign, you no longer need CoSign to be involved in it at all, because it's all self-contained within this PDF document. Or if it was Word or Excel, those applications are also digital signature ready. If you were to, the digital signature, the certificate, is actually now inserted inside the document. And you can see the details right here. You can see who it's signed by, John Miller. You have the reason code, I approved the document, and you have your date and time. And then if you can show the certificate. If you click on the right-hand side, show certificate, you can see the chain of custody. And right here, the ARX CoSign root in the upper left, and you can see, and the reason you can trust this is if you trust that root certificate, and if you were deploying this in your own organization, that would be your organization that would be listed there, and then it's tied in with most likely with some kind of a directory service, and that's where John Miller is coming from, and that's why you can trust John Miller's certificate. If you were just getting a self-signed certificate like you can, it would just say John Miller up top, and then, but why would you necessarily trust that? What makes you trust this is that it's tied in with your already existing controls within your organization. It's subtle, but that's essentially the secret sauce to digital signatures.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Brian. Again, just kind of diving into a little bit of what happened behind the scenes together with K2 and CoSign, and then that final result of that PDF document that was created. All right, so one last thing I want to show before we get back into the summary of what we saw today is, again, the ability to see reporting. We saw a little bit of that reporting capability via that view flow where we're able to track that process as it ran, but now we can even take a further look, so take a step back and start seeing all processes, the number of tasks by user, the number of instances that have been run, so any process trends that we see, as well as the contract signing process itself. So again, being able to build nice dashboards with the information that K2 is providing, along with a list of all of my active processes. So if I wanted to gather a report of all my processes that still need either customer signatures, dealer signatures, I can see what stages they're in. So again, full visibility throughout the entire process for this. in addition to being able to see, well, I see the list of it, but I want to see the view flow. So again, coming back in to see we're sitting at dealer signature here. So again, all the information being captured by K2, accessible in reporting capabilities. So the last and final thing I want to show, I'm just going to go back here, is the user administration. So we talked about being able to run a process, being able to sign digitally, being able to see the reporting, but now about the user administration. We saw John Miller get created on the fly as part of the process, but there might be times when I want to go ahead and create a user or disable a user. So again, we're interfacing or integrating with the CoSign appliance and the CoSign capabilities to create users, enable, disable, delete those users as necessary. If we scroll down, we do see John Miller here, and you can see John Miller was created. We can open that up and now select maybe what location he belongs in. So maybe he belongs in New York, and maybe it's Central New York. So we can add some more metadata around that and capture that information. And then later, maybe we want to see, I only want to see people in the New York area, so we'll go ahead and filter this by New York, and we can see that we've got our different users in the New York area. So again, not only being able to address and create these users into CoSign, but also capture additional information that might be needed from a reporting perspective as we're evaluating our processes and procedures in the organization. All right, so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and jump back into our summary here of what we saw today and really what the CoSign and K2 integration gave us. And it's really about getting the power of the best of breed. So we have the process automation with the full forms, workflow, data integration, and reporting with that digital signing procedures and the digital capabilities with full compliance for those PDF documents and those signatures. Business applications integrated again with digital signatures, allowing for that flexibility. So in my case, I signed online. I could have signed at the dealer, and maybe that dealer has a signature pad. So again, varying ways of doing that signing, but again, still part of that same common flow in that process. What I showed you today does include that management and signature capabilities. So again, that integration not only from signing, but also from managing my different users into that CoSign appliance. And of course, the integrated solutions themselves. So we take these two apart, K2 as a process automation application, best of breed, and CoSign, but putting them together really creates that value in that digital signing process. And we saw a number of areas where that digital signing is needed and used in those use cases, whether it's enterprise or government related. All right, so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and pull up our contacts. So if you need additional information or want to get more information on what you saw today or being able to pull that into your organization, you can contact us at cosign@k2.com to learn more about it.